Wait, I got traded to YouTube, but YouTube said I didn't get traded. But then I was traded to Twitch, and then I was loaned to MLG. But then MLG said that they never agreed to YouTube's agreement to loaning me to trading for loaning. What is happening? Hey, what is up, guys? It is your boy Kingdom Soldier, and I'm back again with another commentary. I know that a lot of you guys are not on Twitter, so you may not know what has gone down in the last 2 days. And for most, it's been pure comedy. It has been laughable, but it's also not a joke. That's the unfortunate thing, is what's going down with these roster non-changes. I don't even know what to call them. You know, instead of roster mania, I want to call it roster mania now, because really behind the scenes is where everything takes place. And so behind the scenes, there has been talks of some teams getting some players. We do know that Parasite was benched. We know that Karma didn't want to be on EG anymore. And then yesterday we found out that it looked like one of the solutions that I mentioned, or the options, is that Dedo was going to EG and Karma was going to FaZe. However, when FaZe tweeted out yesterday, FaZe Clan, the organization, tweeted out that they were sending Dedo to EG for Karma. EG, the organization, not any of the pro players, EG, the organization, tweeted out, actually, you didn't. Now, this is gone from, back in the day, roster mania was crazy when players were tweeting out roster changes when they could just drop whoever they wanted and pick them up. And that's what these rules that MLG put in place were made for, to stop, was these crazy roster changes that just took place like in the blink of an eye. And if we were still in that era, Parasite would be on a different team, and so would Karma already. It would have already happened. Parasite would have been dropped, not benched. Karma would have left and not been benched. And so, but now the organizations are going at each other on Twitter. So that tweet was the tweet heard round the world. Everybody jumped on it, retweeted it. You can see how many retweets and everything it has. It was a really huge tweet. Then today, now last night, FaZe Apathy, good video to watch. I'll try to put a link in the description. FaZe Apathy kind of broke down what happened. He said that EG didn't want to give up Karma. They are loaning Karma to FaZe until the end of Season 3. Now, I agree with that decision. That makes sense. Karma is the winningest player in Call of Duty history when it comes to earnings. And he's won quite a few tournaments himself. You know, he's won 2 Call of Duty championships and then has a myriad of other tournaments that he's won. He is the player that has been on the Impact squad that won a whole bunch, and on the Complexity/EG squad that won a whole bunch. There's the common denominator is Karma. Karma is a great player. We look at Crim and we look at Scump because Karma's role on Ghost is not the same as Crim and Scump. And so, but the reality is Karma's great, you know. And EG shouldn't just give him up for Dedo. I mean, Dedo's a good player, and, you know, according to Aches, like back in May, I guess he tweeted out that Dedo and Nameless were the best 2 outside of his organization at the time. But, you know, Dedo is a good player, but he's not a Karma. It's not a free trade for how much EG paid to get that Complexity team. And so I would necessarily, I could understand them wanting to loan but not receive. So then today, EG tweets out, the organization, not a pro player, tweets out that EG has picked up Dedo and loaned Karma to FaZe until the end of Season 3. And Dedo changed his Twitter handle to EG Mr. Dedo or something like that. EG Dedo, I don't know what it was. And so Dedo's like officially on EG. Then FaZe Temper, the owner of FaZe, responds to EG, the organization, and says, well, we didn't agree to those terms when we talked to Mr. X last night. And then that tweet is now being retweeted, and it's just begun, the craziness. It's becoming laughable. This is the opposite. Like, we didn't want to see whole organizations tweeting at each other and confusing everyone. Now, the reality is that it's just Twitter. And what I realized as I was thinking about this is, you know, maybe there, I mean, I hate to say this, but maybe there has to be a restriction where until paperwork is actually signed, no one involved in any roster exchanges can tweet it out. And that sucks for us, the people that are kind of watching to see what happens and where somebody goes, because then we're 100% speculating, because intel these days is like gold. No one gives up the intel. I mean, we may get a little, but it gets to the point where if you actually talk about it, like if I knew somehow, if me and Hex were homies and I knew that Hex was going to drop Proofy and Clay to pick up Nade and Formal, if I knew that and I just talked about that in a video, that could ruin the team. That could ruin careers. I mean, that could be Proofy and Clay could just be like, well, we don't want to be on this team anymore. The same thing Karma did, when TP told him that they were thinking about dropping him or something like that because he didn't want to play and whatever. I don't know what really happened in that situation, because Crim never made a video, which makes sense. EG probably told him not to. And so things have changed drastically. But there may have to be a tweet clause that says no one can tweet under penalty of a fine or something like that. And yeah, I know it's a lot of restrictions, but if the goal is to have more professionalism in how we trade players and how this community deals with roster changes, then kind of putting a ban on these type of tweets is, I mean, EG actually tweeted out like an article about it, and then Temper comes back and says, nah, we ain't agree to that. At the end of the day, I do believe Dedo's going to end up on EG. He's not going back to FaZe. I still believe he wanted to get away from Censor, and EG actually wants him. And Karma, I think, will actually be loaned to FaZe. I would agree. I don't know what the terms are. But the thing is, it's like if you're giving up a player and then they get Karma only till the end of Season 3 without an option to sign him, then that may not be a fair deal for FaZe, because then they're going to end up needing a fourth. I mean, what if they win the next 2 Ghost tournaments and then they lose Karma because EG's like, nah, you got to pay more for him than that? I mean, you never know. So I think Temper's making a good decision, but it shouldn't be on Twitter, because it's just as bad, if not worse, than when pro players were doing this. At least when pro players are doing it, we've seen this before. The stuff that Parasite and Censor have been saying back and forth, and the stuff Ake says sometimes, like, we've seen this. That's not new to us. But when an organization that owns multiple types of franchises and teams, like Evil Geniuses or like FaZe, it's kind of like, dang, I mean, this is getting serious. And it's comedy. If you're not on Twitter, this is why you need to be on Twitter. I hope my last video and this video kind of answered most of your questions about what's going on. I guess nothing is solid yet, but this is your boy Kingdom Soldier, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.